Does my screen work? Okay, thanks. Guess I don't have something to hit. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the July 10th, 2024 meeting of the Revere Conservation Commission. For those that would like to, let's stand and pledge allegiance to the flag. Is the Zoom up and running, Lorena? Okay. All right, so we're going to do a roll call. Nicholas Rudolph?
Here.
Bernardo?
Here.
Wilson?
Here.
Brian?
Here.
John is here. So we have 5. We have a quorum. All right. First up is review and approval of the meeting minutes from June 4th, 2024. Are there any comments, additions, deletions?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. All right. Minutes are approved. So before we go too deep, I just kind of want to go over the agenda really quick. So we have a notice of intent. First up, 42 Arcadia, DEP did not issue a file number, so we will open the hearing, but it'll have to be continued to next month. We have a notice of intent for a water line from MWRA. DEP did issue a file number, but the commission has not visited that site yet, so at the end, we're going to ask for a continuation. Request for determination of applicability for an expansion of the driving lanes at the Wonderland Station parking garage. They did not post their legal notice, so that is not tonight. It'll be next month. We also have a request for determination of applicability of Brown Circle Rotary to address the oil spill that happened there several years ago. We're going to have a presentation by LEC Environmental Consultants. There's no application before the commission, so it's just a presentation by them and a conversation. Has to be done in a public setting. We're going to go to enforcement, and then we have another request for determination for 127 Oak Island, certificate of compliance, and a request for extension. So the only 2 things that are on the agenda where we would seek public input are going to be the first 2 items, the 2 notices of intent. All right, so first up is a notice of intent from Mark Rondon and Lauren Rondon at 42 Arcadia Street. They want to add crushed stone and topsoil to level out their backyard to reduce flooding. So I'm going to go ahead and open the hearing. So if you want to introduce yourself, your name and address, and turn your mic on. There you go.
My name is McClellan Rondon. My wife here is Lauren Rondon. It's to the back of 42 Arcadia Street. We have a severe flooding issue that takes place there. So what we're trying to do to alleviate it on the notice of intent is to put some crushed stone at the bottom to even allow water at the bottom. If the water table raises, at least it's place for the water to go, but also put some, like a fabric, the weed block fabric on top, and then put some 2 inches of topsoil and use some sod on top of that. So that's pretty much how we want to go about it, to try to lift the yard, because we are much lower than all the other surrounding property.
And how big of an area is your backyard? It's pretty small.
Yeah, pretty small. Pretty small. Well, you guys came and take a look at it. We're looking at about, say, 28 feet by about 24 feet around that area. So it's not going, I don't think it, with what we intend to do, not going to water, not going to go into anybody else's property. At least we still have a place for the water to get, you know, under, move below with the stone at the bottom there. We're using like about 3/4 clean stone. And the topsoil we're going to put on is clean topsoil also, along with the sod that we'll be getting from Lowe's.
Any questions from the commissioners? So Bernardo, you were there Saturday?
Yes, I was. We check the site. They have been having problems with flooding in the backyard, so they want to level the area so they can use the backyard. So that's basically what we saw last Saturday.
Okay. Any other commissioners have any comments or questions?
Wasn't there, but it won't be like any impact, like now the water, if you put it and the water will go to the other neighbors, like this, it won't be higher than the neighbors.
No, it will be the same level as the neighbors, but that's why I even put in stone at the bottom instead of just packing it with dirt all the way down. So at least if the water table increases, at least there's some place for the water to move at the bottom there, not just pack it with dirt, so it will displace the water. It wouldn't really displace the water as much as lift the yard where it is. You won't have all that water in the backyard.
Yeah, you can't walk out there now without sinking down 10 inches.
Correct.
So, all right. If there's no questions from the commissioners, then I'll open it up to the public or anyone via Zoom if they want to speak for or against this project.
Angela Garino Sawaya, Ward 5 Counselor. I have no problem with this project. I think it would retain the water and make it better for everybody else in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak for or against this project? Is there anyone on Zoom? So hearing none, I'm going to close the hearing. If you guys are okay, I need a motion to close the hearing.
Make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, hearing's closed. You can, any discussion?
It seems pretty straightforward.
Okay. I missed something? All right. So we would need a motion to approve their notice of intent and issue an order of conditions.
I'll make a motion to approve the NOI.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So it'll probably be Monday before you get that. And then you have to wait 10 business days, and then you can go record it and then do your project. Okay? Oh, if you bring those up for Linda, sorry, I should have asked. Oh, or Lorena. All right, thank you, guys. Next up is a notice of intent, DEP file number 061-0822 from the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority, where at 28 Rice Avenue and a portion of Rice Avenue adjacent to the Linway, replace a portion of the MWRA water main, section 56, that previously crossed the General Edwards Bridge. So I'm going to go ahead and open the hearing for this. And
Good evening. My name is Peter Grasso. I'm a program manager with the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority, and I'm the project manager on and I'm the project manager on the Section 56 water line replacement project. We have a presentation that we're going to go through, and I'm going to go through the first couple of slides, and then I'm going to have our permitting specialist go through the rest of the slides for you guys.
Okay.
So next slide. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the MWA, and I'm sure most of you are, we're a quasi-state agency, and we provide water and wastewater services to 3.1 million people in 61 communities throughout the state. We provide 200 million gallons a day to 53 communities, and we also collect 350 million gallons per day of wastewater, which is treated at Dare Island. Next, please. So the Section 56 water pipeline project, so the existing pipeline was installed in 1934, so it's 90 years old. And it runs up the Linway and used to cross over the General Edwards Bridge and into Lynn to feed the communities up north. And it also supplies water to the city of Revere. So back in 2018, we had to take the section that was on the General Edwards Bridge off because it was just too corroded, and the bridge is in such bad shape. So if you look at the map, it's basically at the mouth of the Saugus River, the Point of Pines, and then it continued over on the other side into Lynn. So when we complete this project, that will reconnect those lines, and we'll be able to supply water up through into Lynn to the other communities, and it will also help with the water quality and water issues in Revere. Next slide, please. So as it is now, the pipeline dead ends at the bridge. So when we complete this project, that will make that connection, and that would eliminate that dead end. When you have a dead end like that, it can create water quality issues because the water's not flowing. And so this project is crucial to protecting, the public and environmental health. It also provides a redundancy for fire flows because if we happen to ever have a break down the southern portion of Section 56, down by that meter 106, we have no way to pump water up and around back down into Revere to supply the city. So once we do that, once we make that connection back, we'll be able to do that. And this will also increase the water pressure in the areas, in the community, and it will improve the water quality also. So this project, we hope to bid this coming up in the fall and get a contractor on board in January 2025. So we have the project scheduled so the work would start on the Lynn side of the project. We'll be doing the connection down Hanson Street. That will go through the winter and the spring of 2025. And then we're going to come over to the Revere side probably in October of 2025. We're trying to schedule it that way so we're not there interrupting the summer activities, with our construction, that's going on there. So we're trying to schedule everything kind of in the off season. So we'll come over in October. We'll do the portion going up Rice Avenue, which is a short section of pipe. We should be able to install pretty quickly. Get that done, by Christmas, and then in January of 2026, that's when we'll do the horizontal directional drill across the river. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to our permitting specialist, consultant, Kate.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Kate Schassler. I'm here with AECom and MWRA. Also with us are Jim Sullivan, our project manager, Jennifer Doyle-Breen, our senior technical advisor, and Julie Sullivan, who is the project manager at MWRA for the environmental permitting. Whole cast of characters for you tonight. Okay, so sort of picking up, we can go to the next slide, where Peter left off. Section 56 is 90 years old and is a 90-inch cast iron pipe, 9 years old, and is a 20-inch diameter cast iron pipe for the majority of its length. This project is to replace the portion that previously crossed the Saugus River via the General Edwards Bridge via a method called horizontal directional drilling. This is a trenchless method of pipeline installation, particularly suited to installing pipeline around obstructions and minimizing surface impacts. Additional pipeline will be installed in Rice Avenue in Revere and then Hanson Street in Lynn to connect the HDD portion of the pipeline to the existing Section 56, which is in Route 1A. Prior to arriving at the project as we're presenting it today, the MWRA evaluated a number of replacement alternatives, which I'll touch on in a little bit. We can go to the next slide. I have an overview figure, which we also have available full size if anyone wants to come take a look at it in person. This shows the extent of the project, Revere being in the upper left-hand corner on this figure, where you can see we have an HDD exit staging area. This is where the pipe will be emerging from the ground. And then we have a limit of work for the open trench pipeline installation in Rice Ave, and then of course where it will connect to the existing Section 56. Next slide, please. Here is a diagram that illustrates how horizontal directional drilling works. If we're looking at it now, so we can see that on the right side of this image is where this pre-assembled pipe will be laid out. That will happen in Lynn, where there's plenty of space. And on the left is kind of where the pipe will be pulled through once the pilot hole has been drilled and enlarged, and again, emerging in the exit pit. Again, this was a method developed to avoid impacts to the surrounding environment. And for the majority of its length, the pipeline will be 40 feet below the seafloor of the Saugus River. Next slide, please. So a bit more detail. The cut and cover pipe will be 24 inches and will be installed within Rice Ave. The trenchless installation via HDD will be 2,800 linear feet in total of 30-inch water pipeline. 735 linear feet will be in Revere specifically. And all of the construction work in Revere will occur within paved areas or in the Linway median, which is where the current Section 56 runs under. So of course we need to tie into that somehow. Next slide, please. A couple images that show existing conditions at the site. The top image is of the median I just mentioned, and then the lower image is of Rice Avenue facing east towards the Point of Pines Yacht Club. Next slide, please. And then the HDD exit pit will be sited in the Point of Pines Yacht Club parking lot. Here are a couple images of the parking lot as it exists today. Next slide. Here is a diagram showing the 9 different alternatives that were developed in a 2017 feasibility analysis. The project as we propose it today is the orange line that's marked Route 7, and you can see it pretty well on the screen there, I think. Next slide, please. With regard to the wetland resource area impacts, this table indicates the temporary resource impacts we propose to Revere. The entire project area is in land subject to coastal storm flowage, so no getting around that. Portion of the open cut excavation and the HDD staging area is in the riverfront, 200-foot riverfront area. And then, again, the whole Point of Pines Peninsula is mapped as barrier beach, so we will have impacts to that. Following construction, the only surface impacts will be 3 at-grade manholes. Each will be in existing paved surfaces, so there will be no net increase in impervious surface because of this project. Next slide, please. Touching briefly on performance standards. Happy to get into these into more detail, but for the sake of time, they're all here, they're all in the NOI. There are none for land subject to coastal storm flowage. The 200-foot riverfront area is broken down into 4 categories, of which we meet each of them. Again, I'm happy to go into more detail, but we can keep moving to the next slide for now. coastal dune / Barrier Beach system. Right now, the entirety of the project site in Barrier Beach system is impervious surface where we'll be working. So we're not going to be creating any new impervious surface there. And with regard to land under water bodies and waterways, this also is broken into 4 categories. And because this project will entail no impacts to the Saugus River itself, we meet each of these categories. Next slide, please. This is a figure that illustrates our project limit of work overlaid on the different wetland resource areas in the vicinity of the project site. It's kind of small on the screen, but we have this in full size if anyone wants to come see it in the audience or from the commission. The orange rectangle is the Point of Pines Yacht Club parking lot, which is our exit staging area where the exit pit will be. And then there's a blue dotted line, which is the installation within Rice Ave, which will be open cut excavation. Next slide, please. A similar figure that just shows the land subject to coastal storm flowage, or the FEMA 100-year floodplain, of which we are entirely in. Next slide. And then this third figure shows NHESP estimated and priority habitats, of which we will have no impacts to. We are adjacent to this area, but have designed the project explicitly to avoid impacts to this habitat. So no impacts there. Next slide, please. So drilling back down into impact avoidance, the selected installation method, which is HDD, avoids any open cut impacts across the Saugus River. So this results in no expected impacts on the hydrology of the river. There will be an archaeologist present during construction within Rice Ave. That's the open cut construction. As I mentioned, no impacts to the estimated and priority habitat, and no work will be done on the undeveloped sandy beach front. Next slide. For impact minimization, again, HDD is a great choice for minimizing sedimentation, erosion, and environmental impacts to the Saugus River. The selected route, Route 7, also minimizes neighborhood and traffic impacts and impacts to the Barrier Beach. Additionally, the MWRA is committed to continuing to work with community and stakeholders to minimize traffic and seasonal impacts. And then next slide, impact mitigation. So for the impacts that we do anticipate, we have developed a traffic management plan that will ensure the maintenance of emergency services to the Point of Pines community. The HDD and Rice Avenue work will be restricted to the off-season. There will be erosion and sedimentation control measures installed around the site. There is a frack out plan that has been developed and will be implemented. Waste and trash management will be taken care of. Fueling will occur away from resource areas. Dust mitigation will occur in the form of watering down stockpiles. And again, there will be archaeological oversight of the sensitive construction in Rice Ave. Next slide, and I'm getting to the end. So in addition to the NOI we have filed, we will also be seeking a Highway Department street opening permit for the city of Revere. And then if we want to go to the next slide, I have up here the project plans. There are 4 slides in total. These we also have full size if anyone would like to come see them. You can see kind of on your printouts maybe the blue line, which is the riverfront area. Again, we're partially in that. Any work we have in the riverfront area is in the outer 100 feet, so we're in the edge of it. And then the whole area is Barrier Beach system, and the whole area is land subject to coastal storm flowage. So we can just flip through the next couple of project plans. This is, maybe hang out here for a sec. Okay. This is the plan that shows the HDD alignment as it goes underneath the Saugus River, starting in Lynn and ending up in Revere. As you can see, it will be 40 feet below the Saugus River for the majority of its length, excepting the upland areas at which it does need to come out of the ground. And then the next slide, please. And this is just a more detailed plan of the staging required for the exit pit in the Point of Pines Yacht Club parking area. And next slide, and I believe that's all we have for tonight. Open to questions.
For those in the audience and watching via Zoom, if you would like a copy of the presentation, just send an email to concom@revere.org requesting the presentation, and we'll forward that on to you. Like I said, there'll be no decision taken tonight. It'll be at the next meeting. Questions? I have some, but I'll let the commissioners go first.
Yeah, I have a few. So, looking over the feasibility study, that there were, looks like 9+ options of things that you were going through. I'm wondering why that was chosen, this was chosen. Looking at number 9 on the slide, you're basically in somebody's driveway in the photo. Why would you choose this one, Rice Ave, right at the yacht club, when it looks like, I don't know, all the other ones seem like they weren't in somebody's driveway? I'm sure there's got to be a reason for that. So if you look at slide 9, existing conditions, Rice Avenue, it's somebody's driveway is your photo.
Oh, you're talking about the pictures. I thought you were talking about an alternative.
I think it would be helpful if we show the slide with the various alignments.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about slide 11 for the feasibility study and slide 9 for the pictures that you provided.
Right. So I think
And just to add that the distance, like to make, that was the longest distance too, but
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious, yeah.
Which one's the alignment slide?
I think it's slide 9.
Slide 11 is the feasibility study alignment line.
Slide
That
11
one.
is
Those?
Yep, that's it.
There you go.
The orange diagonal next to the last one is the one that they went with as opposed to any of the other lines.
Correct. And so I could try to answer that question. My name is Jim Sullivan. I'm project manager with AECOM. So a lot of different factors on both sides of the river contribute to, what we typically call sort of like a triple bottom line assessment of each alternative. We're looking at a multitude of factors, environmental impacts, impacts on the Lynn side. One of the things that really impacted the project is that significant development going on right now. They're going to try to move in, I think, in like less than 6 months. So you can see some of the alignments there that need to start at that location involved a different type of tunneling method. It's called microtunneling. And some of that sequencing made those alternatives not feasible from a schedule perspective. Those are the ones you're talking about that land in the Linway as opposed to a little bit down Rice Ave. The ones that really worked from a sequencing perspective were the ones that had the HDD at the end of Hanson Street, and you can see where we had the green alignment, we call that Route 3. That actually was more disruptive to the Point of Pines neighborhood because now we're traversing, 3 times the distance down Rice Avenue. And we also needed that open space, the parking lot of the Point of Pines Yacht Club. And when we assess the HDD technology, there's really a small window of time that's needed. When I say small window, 3 to 4 months. And in discussion with the yacht club, that was available during the winter months.
They've already approved it?
The MWA has been working extensively with the yacht club on this sequencing.
What about the neighbors nearby, their impact?
That's going to be an open cut trench that at this point in time we're sequencing so it's not in the summer months. It's not in the
But even so, I mean, in the winters here, I'm sure you're aware it can be absolutely brutal. So it's obviously, definitely, I think we all appreciate you not doing this during the summertime near Revere Beach. Not ideal for you to do this, but it's also kind of brutal during winter, not so much for the traffic, but from people needing to get to work, snow, whatever. So what would be the impact in that area during those types of situations?
So it would be in the section of Rice Ave where we have an open cut pipe. It's traditionally, a cut and cover construction in a work day where they're trying to get a few sections of pipe in, out, and they try to avoid, morning rush hour and evening rush hour. It's typical construction hours. It's not a long duration because it's not a long distance of pipe to get from the Linway to the yacht club. We would be maintaining, there would be a definitive requirement to maintain all emergency services and all access to every driveway in that section. But it is not uncommon that when pipelines are built down a residential street for the contractor to have to coordinate with each homeowner, make sure that they can get everybody in and out, and then coordinate. We have pretty robust traffic management plans that have been developed for that area. So.
And then kind of on a different subject, but still obviously, all obviously you know more about water than probably most people do. And one of the lines that you wrote in here was a bullet point. It says it's going to improve the water quality. Can you get a little bit more into detail of, is our water not great as it already is, or what is that going to do?
Yeah, so water quality depends on the turnover of the water. So if you have water that's stagnant, most of the time when we have pipe shutdowns, if it's for more than 2 weeks, that water's sitting there, we have to disinfect it. So the fact that that water, we actually bleed the water out of the end of the pipe into the river, just to keep that water flowing, to keep it fresh as much as possible. So once this pipe is connected again, that water will be flowing constantly, and there won't be any kind of possible issues with the water quality.
It's why they flush water mains.
Yeah, no, I understand that aspect. I just wanted to see if there was maybe some sort of definitive thing that you're doing that
No.
we weren't aware of. Just, it was a small bullet point, so I just kind of
Yeah.
wanted to. The other thing is that you said that it was 90-year-old cast iron pipe. How much of that is still left in that area, or are you taking all of it out?
No, all of the pipe is still the 90-year-old pipe all the way down, heading down Revere Beach and going up north in the Lynn. It's still going to be the same existing 90-year-old pipe. I don't know if we have anything in the pipeline to replace that at some point, but I'm sure there's something in our CIP to replace that at some point, so.
Okay, thank you.
Nicholas?
Just kind of curious, it caught me when you said redundancy for the pipe. So right now, the water is running through another pipe right now, and this, in case, when you say redundancy, to me that means it's running through one pipe. If that pipe breaks, you can reroute the water through this pipe. Is that, how does it work? I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, so it's called redundancy. So right now, if anything happened to the pipe heading south on the Linway, past the meters where you have your meters, if that broke, there's no way to get water up to the Point of Pines area
Okay, so-
in that region. If we had that connection, we could pump it around
Oh.
through other pipes in the other communities and bring it back down through Lynn across the bridge to feed.
And the other pipe that is currently running is about 90 year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nicholas?
Considering where it is in the channel, and the water moving across there, how do you plan to mitigate sediment buildup and the pressure that might be exerted on that pipe in there? What kind of materials is the pipe going to be made of? Also, is there going to be any structural enhancement because of that sediment buildup in that channel?
So the pipe that's going to be going across the river is going to be HDPE, high-density polyethylene pipe. That pipe is fused together. We're going to take section of that pipe and fuse it together and string it out on the Lynn side and pull it through. And when they do that, they pull the pipe through. There's a bentonite slurry that goes with it that helps lubricate it to go through, and that's what fills around the area around the pipe that controls that hole that we made through. So.
Just because of the area, the boat traffic that goes through, it definitely builds up sediment there. And I'm just curious if you had accounted for the weight, the increased weight or pressure that might be on that pipe. I just go through all this process to have your pipe get crushed, essentially. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
I can answer that. I mean, the answer to your question is absolutely yes. We account for not just the topography and the seabed flow profile that exists today, but the potential increase in that. And actually, the worst case cover on the pipeline that we've designed is not in the channel itself, because that's the minimal cover above the pipeline. It's actually closer to the Lynn side where we might have double the overburden. So we had to design a pipe for the worst case.
Any other questions from the commissioners?
So when you have the drilling and all of the material coming out, it will be to the Lynn side? We won't see like any trucks in the Revere side? Everything will be through the Lynn side, or? From the Lynn side.
During the drilling operation, there is actually material that can come out on both sides of the river. The way this system works, it's a multi-pass system. They'll drill an initial pilot hole that might be 6 inches in diameter, and then they keep upsizing it slightly to make sure that they can maintain that opening throughout. So there will be, that same rig might move back and forth. All the material that comes out is containerized. It's characterized, and it will be trucked off-site for, appropriate disposal. There will be some, small amount of trucks that will be hauling material away during business hours from the Revere side.
Any other? All right, so just go through my questions. The length of the cut and cover pipe, roughly, on the Revere side, how long is that? How long?
It's less than 1,000 feet, I think around 800.
Yeah, I think it's around 800.
And it's also going to be HDPE? Or are you going to
No,
transition to
that'll be
cast
ductile
or
iron.
steel?
That'll
Be
be
ductile
ductile
iron?
iron, yeah.
All right. So I had a question about materials, cathodic protection, but I don't think plastic needs that. You answered about displaced soil. You talked about frack out. So are you going to explain frack out?
So I can explain that. During the horizontal directional drilling process, they keep the excavated hole open with a bentonite slurry. And you're trying to equalize the pressure that exists with the water, the ocean water above. There are circumstances in past projects where you might get what's called an inadvertent loss of drilling fluid that rises to the surface. This technology is very mature today. It's been utilized to build these kind of crossings for decades upon decades, and nowadays they have a lot of tools to make sure that frack out doesn't occur. But as an extra belt and suspenders, we have already developed a draft frack out management plan. It's really like the investigation, the monitoring, the work plan procedures. And then when the contractor wins their bid, they have to provide some very specifics on, what kind of control of frack out they're going to implement, what kind of monitoring and those kind of procedures. And that's a requirement in the contract. So that's what frack out is.
So I don't think that was included in the NOI. The frack out plan?
Oh, the plan,
Not the frack out management plan, I don't believe so.
Yeah.
I mean, that can be supplemented.
We could get a copy of that. So you are going to have material that you're going to remove, you're going to collect it, it's going to go off-site. You're not going to dewater it or anything on-site.
I wouldn't classify it as dewatering, but there might be some containerized processing because they might want to, they do typically clean the bentonite slurry, so they don't reuse dirty slurry when they keep doing the passes. But any water, any material could go in separate directions after containerized, off-site.
But it'd be in a container going somewhere.
Exactly. It's
Not on the ground.
Exactly. It's
Not back in the
discharged.
river.
Right, no.
What about the trucking through the neighborhood? Is that going to be a constant thing, or is that a small, it happens every now and then, or?
Yeah, very small and intermittent, and it's typically when, the containers are full, and the characterization of the material has come back and now they're authorized to discharge it. It might be like, 4 to 5 trucks on a particular day.
So I think the process is a, good process of what you're doing. My big thing is the neighborhood and the impact on them. It's not gonna be anything that's, environmentally something people wouldn't wanna have around that would be in those trucks. It's basically just rock. Is that pretty much it?
It's actually marine clay.
Marine clay, okay.
Is the predominant material. Yeah,
Right.
it's an inert material. There's nothing contaminated or hazardous with it.
Thank you.
So the habitat was for plovers? Plovers? Okay. And we're out of that altogether.
Correct.
On the drilling, how big does the hole get drilled before you start pulling the pipe through?
That's typically a contractor choice because the 30-inch pipe is the pipe specified for hydraulic purposes. We anticipate it being about 4 feet, up to 4 feet in diameter. And as Peter had mentioned, the annular then gets filled with bentonite,
Okay,
the space between the pipe and the.
all right. I think those are all my questions. So I'm going to, if you guys have no more questions, I'm going to get some initial input from the public. Go to Zoom first. Anyone on Zoom? No? All right, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on behalf of the project? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in opposition to the project? All right, state your name and address, please.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Hugo Rizzuto, 265 Rice Ave. I'm speaking in opposition to the project. In actuality, I'm not opposing the project. I'm opposing the method at which MWRA has decided to bring this pipe across from Lynn to Revere, okay? The pipeline that they're proposing is a redundant system. They already have a pipeline which feeds the North Shore. This is a secondary pipe. It's not critical. They do need it, but not essential, okay? The pipeline that's there that they removed back in 2018, it was, again, 90 years old. It was really, rusted out. Technology back in 1934 is way, way behind to where we are today. We're light years away in today's technology. That's why I have a problem with them drilling underneath the Saugus River and removing 35,000 cubic feet of riverbed. I have no idea what's underneath there. That is going to affect the environment gigantically, okay? I think there are other options that they can utilize to get this pipe across from Lynn to Revere. I think the option of going under the bridge is a reasonable option. I looked at the proposal option that they have. The one going over the river underneath the bridge, they kind of pushed it aside for some ridiculous ideas that they had. If you look at their under their page 5 of their proposal, it said it was not possible to cross the pipeline underneath the bridge because of environmental factors. They're concerned about severe weather. Okay, severe weather impacting a pipe. We haven't had severe weather in Revere since the blizzard of '78, really, to speak of. But even if we had severe weather, if we had a hurricane, if we had an earthquake, if we had some severe weather, we can build a pipeline. We've gone to the moon. Technology today is light years ahead, okay? They can certainly build a pipeline that can go underneath the bridge, okay, and sustain any kind of severe weather. If you look at their chart, the way they had all the lines going this way and that way and every which way, okay, and you look at the environmental risk factor, they're saying, the MWRA is saying, that the risk factor of drilling a 4-foot hole underneath the riverbed is less impactful than putting a pipeline underneath the bridge. I simply cannot conceive or understand how that is less impactful to the environment, okay?
Would it make sense for them to have them answer that question?
Well, let's,
You know?
let's wait.
No, I'm just saying that they're here, so they can respond.
Yeah, at a later date, You know, it's just that I don't understand. You know, if you take a pipeline and you put it underneath a bridge, or you take 35,000 cubic feet of earth underneath the river, I don't know the animals that were the creatures that are underneath the river that we are affecting by digging this gigantic hole under there.
We're talking 40 feet under the riverbed,
Yeah, it's 4 feet in diameter,
40 feet under.
underneath the riverbed, and then coming up on the beach and into the parking lot, okay? So it's got to disturb our environment somehow. I'm sure it's disturbing.
So I want to go back to the bridge, though. So you're saying they should hang a new pipe under the bridge?
I
And
think they should put the-
Recognizing the bridge is, I walked under it.
Let me explain the bridge. The reason they do not want to use the bridge is because the bridge is due to be replaced in 2028.
Right. Yep.
And I understand that. And the way the bridge is going to be built is that they're going to put a temporary bridge next to it. It would be very easy for them to run a pipe right up to the bridge, go along the temporary bridge. When the new bridge is built, just move the pipeline back to the new bridge
Yeah.
and continue that way.
So the new bridge is going to be much taller. And it's a lot more pumping energy to pump it to the top.
I understand that, and that is the reason why the pipeline should go underneath the new bridge. I think that is a primary reason as to why it should go there. In any case, again, I think there's a factor here that, you know, they're looking for a quick approval, okay? They're looking at the path of least resistance. And the path of least resistance is to get the quick approvals, get this project done, and move on. I want them to build that pipeline just as much as anybody else. I do. I like fresh water. You know, I think infrastructure improvements are great, but not at the cost of the environment. I think you, seriously, I hope you would consider to take a look at other options as to how we can minimize the impact to the environment. And that is my position on that.
But you're stating, though, the impacts to the environment are 40 feet under the seabed, under the riverbed. That's what you're concerned about, is
Exactly.
40 feet underneath impacts to the environment and
Exactly.
killing of whatever life is down there.
It's going down. They're going to be removing 30 on the other side, and I know you're not concerned about Lynn, but on the other side, they're going to be removing 30 piles. They're going to clean up that whole area, go down, come across, and then come up on this side into the parking lot, okay? And I understand it's 80 feet down, but however, there are creatures that live below the ground. Unless there's nothing under there, if it's just rock and there's nothing, and we're not bothering anybody, then that's fine. But I think that we are going to be bothering somebody when they come up out of the river, coming up onto the beach and coming onto the parking lot.
So I don't think they come on the beach, they're underneath.
Well,
All the way until you get to
come
the
up into
parking
the
lot.
parking lot, as you
Yeah.
come up into the parking lot, you're certainly going to be disturbing underneath the sand dunes,
Yeah.
and you're certainly going to be disturbing underneath the beach front, the low tide areas. So,
Thank you very much.
okay, thank you.
So it does give me a question for MWRA. Have you done any borings to see what is there?
Yes, we've done an extensive boring program there about 2 years ago. I think we did over 27 borings.
How far down did you go?
A lot of them were, on the land weren't too deep. They were, anywhere from 10 feet to 8 feet. But the ones we did on the riverbed were pretty deep because we had to find out what the geologic conditions were where we're going to be putting the pipes. So they were probably 60, 70 feet down, so.
Is that geological report available?
It is. We do have it. It's pretty extensive, but there's a preamble to it that kind of gives an overview instead of it's literally like 4
Yeah.
volumes thick, so.
No, I don't know.
And to address Mr. Rizzuto's concerns, we really appreciate that he has concerns about it. And obviously, he's done his homework and reviewed a lot of things. But, we don't think that there is going to be any kind of impacts to any kind of aquatic creatures when we're going to be 40 feet below the riverbed. It's basically clay and some cobbles. I don't think anything really lives down that deep. And, the HDD that's one of the reasons it's such a good construction method and trenchless technology itself is it limits the impacts because you basically you have an entrance point and an exit point and you go as deep as you can and go underneath everything. And so really the only impacts are to the surface where the pipe comes in and out. So and I know he had suggested that we try and put the pipe on the new bridge. So the new bridge is actually going to be a permanent bridge. It's not going to be temporary. So they're going to put it in parallel. That's going to be, I believe that's going to be permanent. And, to put he has suggested doing a temporary pipe across the old bridge until that new bridge was built. I've been in touch with MassDOT about the project. They're going to advertise in 2028, but that bridge would probably not be completed till around 2023, 2033, 2034. It could be 10 years from now when they get that done. And to put a temporary pipe across that structurally deficient bridge. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I do a Hail Mary every time I drive over that thing. But, to put a pipe across that bridge for that amount of time to supply water is just really not feasible. And the fact that it's a drawbridge, so you can't really put a fixed pipe across the bridge that, can go up and down.
How did they do it before, though? I mean, the pipe was on the drawbridge before. How did they do it then?
Right, so it goes to the drawbridge, and then there's a siphon that goes underneath, and that was abandoned when
Okay.
we took the pipe
All right.
off. So there's no other way. That's why we've done an extensive evaluation, as you've seen, of all the alternatives, and we believe the one that we selected and moving forward with, really balances the environmental concerns and the concerns of the community.
So one last question, and I'll go back to the audience. The most northern route, the magenta line, if you can go to my screen. So that most northern route, so what were the issues of that one?
Which one? Sorry.
The one that's the top of the page.
Oh, the magenta one?
Yeah, it's not the northern one, it's the most western one.
I think we're running into a lot of wetlands issues over there, especially in that marsh area. And there's a development that was going on over there, so I'm not really sure exactly why that one was. Jim?
Jennifer Doyle-Breen from AECom. Just to add to what Peter's saying is, north of the bridge in the area of the magenta line is also an area of critical environmental concern. So that was an area that was obviously desired to be avoided because it's acknowledged as being in a more important habitat area. And since I'm standing here too, if I could just add one thing too for the Commission's consideration in terms of the environmental impacts and impacts to the area 40 feet below the seabed. I just wanted to point out that we did go through the MEPA process with the Secretary of Environmental Affairs, and as part of that process, EEA, the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs, agreed that the alternative we had chosen was the least environmentally impactful alternative. And as part of that process, DEP commented in MEPA, Division of Marine Fisheries commented as well, and neither of them raised any concerns with any organisms living in 40 feet below the seabed.
Do you need any other permits, like Army Corps or anything like that?
Oh, yes, we do. I was also going to comment on that. I think there was a comment that we're trying to get a quick approval. So first of all, I think the feasibility study was in 2017, right? So that was a number of years ago. And so then we went through MIPA. That took about 2 years, I think, to get through MIPA. And now we're in front of you. In addition, of course, we're going to the Lynn Conservation Commission. We do have to go to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for approval under the general permits of Massachusetts. We also have an application into DEP for 401 water quality certification. We also have an application into DEP for a Chapter 91 license. Is there anything else I'm forgetting? So there, right, that's the point. It's not really, this whole process certainly hasn't been quick. We've been spending a lot of time, MWRA and AECom, trying to get this through a very long permitting process.
Okay. All right. Are there any other people in the audience that would like to speak?
I'd like to go back to that picture with the map, with the purple. You were talking about the MIPA process and you were going to have issues, environmental impact issues there. How is it that a 291-unit building?
Comment should be adjusted to the commission.
How is it that a 291-unit building can go there and have no environmental impact, but this would?
So they went through all the same processes. They got a Chapter 91, they got a 401 water quality permit, they got permission from Army Corps of Engineers, they got DEP sign off, environmental impact reports, MIPA, all of it. It took them a long, long time.
Right, so how would this have environmental impact and that
So
would not?
I think the question is,
And that's
and I'm not putting
that's
words in
inaccurate.
their mouth, is that the suggested route has less environmental impact than the other one.
All right, but that picture right there is inaccurate because number one, the fire station's not even in there, and number two, the high rise isn't in there. So that,
Well,
it's very inaccurate.
I mean, it's coming up at the ball field at Gibson Park, right?
Right. Everything that Mr. Rizzuto had said was one of my concerns, but my main concern is what's going to happen within the neighborhood. I actually spoke to Mr. Grasso today about it, and I just want to be assured that everything is going to go back to normal. They are going to repave the streets the way they, from side to side. I want to make sure that the least possible amount of traffic is taken through that neighborhood. The trucking, I'm afraid of, they cannot be huge trucks because they cannot make the turns on Rice Avenue. And I'm afraid with the children that are in the streets. I mean, we have a very, very small neighborhood there, and it's very tight-knit, and there's kids always in the middle of the streets. And if people are going to be rerouted up and down the streets, we don't have a street that goes straight up and then you're going to take a right. No, you have to go up, down to get out, especially where the yacht club is, where they're coming, we're coming out into the yacht club parking lot. So even if they decided to go straight and they went up Fowler Avenue, they would have to take a right onto Rice Avenue, and if there's huge trucks, they can't make that turn without impacting our dunes, which protects our homes, and then they have to take another right onto Bigford to get out of there. Then they'll end up on the Linway in front of the fire station. But it's not as simple as like 1, 2, 3. We really have to do a complete traffic study on what we're going to do so it can impact the minimum. It could be minimal impact to our residents. And that's my number one concern right now. I do agree with Mr. Rizzuto that if they chose to do it underneath the bridge, I think would have been easier, but they chose this way. I mean, I don't know if there's any way of us to stop it or to change it back, but if there isn't, I just want them to be very cautious with what happens in that neighborhood.
Right. So from the commission's perspective, we'd be looking at environmental impact and are they meeting the standards in the Wetlands Protection Act. If the project can be done and meet those standards, then there's a decision. If the commission feels it can't meet the standards, we would look to impose conditions to make it meet the standards. Normally we wouldn't get into picking options because that process has kind of been ongoing for for several years. If the commission makes a decision that is not liked, there is an appeals process. And if the commission gets it wrong, the DEP can also intervene. So the appeals process would be to the DEP, and the DEP also has an opportunity to intervene. So you have that, and then plus you have all of the other inputs into all the federal agencies.
And then the other question I had was the drilling. They're going to be drilling 40 feet down. You don't think that's going to impact any of the animals that are in any of the fish? We have dolphins washing up dead on our beach. I mean, what caused that?
So I personally don't think drilling 40 feet will, because you're going to be in clay and other soils that probably, if there's stuff there, it's, I don't know, it's bacteria that can live without oxygen. So it's alien life, I don't know. Could there be a spill or an accident that has an impact? Yes. And they would have to have plans in place, to address that. There would be floats, oil response, that type of thing.
And then the trucking, they all need to be covered. Every single one of those trucks that has whatever it has in there, the clay or whatever it is, needs to be covered going through our streets.
Yeah, those are all conditions that can be imposed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
If
So
I-
again, we're not making a decision tonight.
If I could just make one thing too, for the back, it just says Affordable Housing Trust Fund meeting on the board. If you could switch that over to Conservation Commission meeting, that would be great. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. It's AI. There we go. Thank you. Is there anyone else? The gentleman behind you. Anthony?
Anthony Paziali, 51 Arcadia Street. Mr. Commissioner, members of the board. Question about precautions for sinkholes. So down the road, let's say 50 years, the pipe gets weak and it breaks under the beach part or by the parking lot. It's 40 feet deep. When will they know that there's a break? Because if they don't know right away, these things can wash out underneath, and then all of a sudden you have two problems. If it washes out back towards the water, now you're dealing with ocean water getting into this area and clearing out and making a bigger sinkhole, which would just drop anyway. So I'm just curious what precautions they have to protect the dune, protect the parking lot, and how quick would they know a water break?
Yeah, I mean, those are good questions. I think I know the answers, but I let them respond.
So the HDPE pipe that we're going to be using, the wall thickness is about 3 inches. So that pipe is pretty strong and highly unlikely that it would break.
So the issue with HDPE piping is the welds.
Right, where they actually
That's where it's
fuse it,
most likely to break.
where they actually fuse it together. So
Right.
before that pipe goes through underneath the river, all those are inspected and tested before we pull the pipe through. It's actually pressure tested and hydraulically tested.
But his question was, what if? So just hypothetically, if what he said happened, how would anyone know that happened before it was too late?
I can't say how we would, other than if all of a sudden there was a sinkhole, but I
Well, you'd see the
don't.
loss in pressure, you would see your pumps all kick on.
Right, yeah, we'd see a
You'd see
loss
all
of
the
pressure
water.
in the pipeline itself. And
You have
obviously, we
backflow.
wouldn't see it come to the surface unless it was near the beach, but if it was in the water, we wouldn't see it leaking. But we would know through a loss of pressure, and we meter everything, so we would notice that there would be water disappearing somewhere, so.
Yeah. So there's a QA/QC program for all the welding?
I'm sorry?
There's a QA/QC program for all of the welds?
Yes, absolutely. Because we don't want to
And
pull that pipe through and then pressure test it and go, oh, it's leaking, because we're pretty much done. So that will be done on land before anything goes under the river, so.
I mean, I think the thing that would most likely cause the pipe to fail would be poor welds, a material defect. or an earthquake.
Yeah, we'll have a tight quality control on that, so.
All right.
And I'd just like to address the councilor's concerns about traffic and impacts to the community. So we're committed to working with the community in any way we can to try and make this, as painless as possible. We know construction is not painless, but we will work with them on any kind of traffic concerns. We can again, we've scheduled this so it's off peak time, so that kind of, we're trying to mitigate it as much as possible. But we'd be more than happy to meet with her and the residents to address that.
Encourage you to do so.
Mr. Chair, I just have a comment. No, I think the gentlemen have a very valid points. I think running the pipe under the bridge, I agree with you, but I think at this point, I think it is what it is. I'm probably going to run from there. But on page 8, something that gave me that all the construction work in Rivera will occur within the paved areas or Linwood median. So to me, I hoping none of the wetlands area will be touched. So I agree with you, totally agree. I think under the bridge, I think something that should have been discussed. Probably could be cost effective as well, but I think it's probably decided. But to your point, I agree with you. I think you have a very valid points, but on page 8, and maybe if you want to get a copy of this, the construction work in Rio will be occur within the paved areas and the laneway. So to me, that I feel that nothing in the environment will be, so I'm just hoping when we agree to this work that this.
So we still have to do a site visit. We're going to, is there anyone else that would like to speak? Zoomer? Yep.
I just want to know where they're going to park all the vehicles that they're going to be doing during the construction.
Yeah, there's a parking plan, yeah.
Is there a parking plan in place?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So we still have to do a site walk down. We're going to continue this hearing with your agreement until the next meeting on August 7th. If anyone wants a copy of this presentation, send an email to concom@revere.org. If you have any other comments with respect to them project not meeting standards of the Wetlands Protection Act, send those along, and we'll pick this back up at the next meeting. It's the Saturday before August 7th. Sorry, I can't. Is that right, or is it? It's the 27th? The 27th. Yeah, yeah. 10 a.m. Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's to be continued. All right, next up, and thank everyone for coming and taking the time. There's a request for determination of applicability from Jeffrey Lidke, Brown Circle Rotary. These are ongoing response actions for the 2020 Brown Circle Rotary traffic spill. If you guys remember, there was a large spill of fuel at that circle. So Jeffrey, you want to come up and kind of go over what you're proposing to do? So they're asking for a negative determination of applicability.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you. So yes, this is the proposed activities are part of ongoing MCP response actions related to that 2020 tanker rollover that resulted in a spill of gasoline and diesel fuel. In addition, there was an additional tanker spill in 2021 in basically the same area. And the context is that soil and groundwater and surface water have more or less recovered since that spill, but the remaining area that has not yet met cleanup levels is sediment in the marsh channel right there near the corner of Ward Street and Broadway. And so the proposed activities are several hand borings, followed by the application of a bioremediation additive. And the plan for applying this solution will be fully described in a release abatement measure that'll be submitted to Mass DEP and will require DEP approval prior to the beginning of work. And so we are requesting a negative determination of applicability based on 310 CMR 10.02, the section where minor activities that are temporary in nature and are expected to have a negligible impact, excuse me, can be considered exempt. And so this is the work to be proposed is within the buffer zone of DEP mapped wetlands, and involves a small area with hand tooling to dig no deeper than 2 to 3 feet into soil in an area that's adjacent to the salt marsh channel, but is not in the salt marsh channel itself. And the proposed additive is basically a solution of microbes. So this is not a chemical additive like is sometimes used for remedial activities, where there's chemical oxidation is the process by which you're trying to eliminate contaminants that are present. This is actually it's a hyperconcentrated solution of naturally occurring microbes that have been isolated from other sites where they are present and already naturally eating away at petroleum contamination. They have been isolated and then put into what will be a concentrated solution of microbes that is planned to be hand injected into the soil near the salt marsh channel, where the remaining petroleum impacts remain. So one quick note about that is that the salt marsh channel is considered a sensitive environmental area, so there is no intrusive remediation that's allowed in this area. We can't, for example, dig out the impacted sediment. So this would be a proposed low impact option that is not injected directly into the channel but adjacent to the channel, would not require any mechanical drilling. And a few more notes on the proposed amendment. The manufacturer is CL Solutions. They have been making these kind of green bioremediation options for close to 2 decades, is my understanding. And the specific brand name for this amendment is Munox or Petrox. They're just 2 different brand names for the same microbial solution. The Munox has been approved by EPA specifically for petroleum remediation in sensitive environmental areas. And it is, as I mentioned, the organisms have been isolated from other remediation sites and just has simply been concentrated. The microbes, once they get to work, there's typically about a 90-day period of highly increased microbial activity where they break down the petroleum products into carbon dioxide and water. So the byproducts of this process are harmless. The additive is approved by EPA, for direct injection into, sensitive wetland areas. That's not our plan here. We are planning to, inject it nearby the sensitive areas with the hope that the solution of microorganisms will flow via gravity into the sediments in the channel and enhance the natural remediation that's already happening there from microbial activity. And the The area is shown on the maps included in the RDA application, and is basically constitutes a small area near the corner of Ward Street and Broadway in a soil bank near Broadway and adjacent to the Salt Marsh Channel. And we would not anticipate, we wouldn't need to do any work in Broadway. It would be staged from Ward Street, brought by hand over to the area where it's needed. And one other note about the amendment is that it comes frozen. This is basically concentrated microbes. You rehydrate it, and then you apply that solution. We anticipate 5 to 6 gallons of the solution to be applied to each hand borehole. 8 to 10 boreholes in a small area.
And this has been approved and used in Massachusetts?
It has, yeah.
For another remediation project, right?
Yep, it has been approved as part of a RAM plan by DEP in the past. In Milford, Massachusetts, was an example that I forwarded to the commission earlier today.
Can you go to my screen, please? So that's the BJ's parking lot at the top of the screen. And where we're talking about is in that green area below it, right in the corner there, along the Salem Turnpike 107 is where they would. So all of stormwater that washes off of this roads and highways goes untreated into that drainage ditch and into Rumney Marsh. Yeah, Rumney Marsh. And so you have a lot of oils and greases just coming, and asphalt coming off anyway, and so they're trying to get ahead and get this all cleaned up. So.
I mean, I'm not gonna even try to pretend that I comprehend 90% of what you're gonna be doing or talking about with microbes and things like that. I have a general idea of what you're trying to do, but my concern is that this conversation and you being here isn't going to end up in like a John Oliver type show in 20 years with all kids that have, brain tumors because of the stuff that you was used in one DEP project that you got approved by somebody who didn't know what they were doing. And then you're able to say, it was approved by a DEP thing. And then next thing you know, 20 years later, we're dealing with the consequences of some microbe thing that you have that one person apparently approved or something that's done. Because this has happened time after time after time. I mean, they used to think asbestos was great. So this item that you're talking about, what is the probable chances of, 10 or 15 years from now, finding out that it's the next asbestos and we randomly used it to pick up oils and microbes and things, and that we're going to regret it like Woburn with the civil action movie of John Travolta? So just kind of wondering.
I'd like to add to that.
Sure.
Are these, so once it consumes all of the petroleum products, are these opportunistic microbes that are going to be able to feed on something else in the environment? I mean, I know we have gas stations and auto body shops over there. Do these microbes typically feed on anything else besides petroleum products? And after they're done feeding on all of the petroleum and working on the remediation part of that process, are they going to die? Is the colony going to die off? And that would be my concern.
Yes, that's my understanding, is that they, in the studies that have been done, they have about a 90-day period of enhanced microbial activity. This is a type of aerobic degradation, so it requires oxygen. So part of the RAM plan would include, for example, monitoring dissolved oxygen, before and after the application. Both, there's a monitoring well that's up gradient of the proposed location, and then surface water can be sampled in the channel itself. And so, part of the details in the RAM plan will be a monitoring plan for both before and after the application that'll monitor things like dissolved oxygen and microbial activity. So you can do a plate count to see what is happening there. And it's hard to answer a question like, will this become the next, Superfund site like in Woburn? But I believe the answer is no. These these products have been around for decades. They've been used successfully across the nation. It's not a one-off use from these. We have used this product across several sites in Connecticut with success and no detrimental effects that have been observed. And in terms of the actual product itself, it is not a synthetic chemical that has been derived in a lab. It is a collection of naturally occurring microbes that they find at petroleum spill sites that are doing the remediation work, and they have isolated those strains, grown them, and now package it, so to speak. And so there's no reason to think that there's any sort of unknown chemical in here besides the microbes. It's a concentrated solution of those microbes which are naturally occurring.
Yeah, you have to weigh the long-term impacts of hydrocarbons leaching into our system versus, adding microbes that will eat it, produce water, carbon dioxide. It's deployed in a lot of areas. They're asking for a negative determination of applicability. If we say no, then what they'll do is they'll come back and file a notice of intent looking for an order of conditions on applying the product. So.
Is this the point where we discuss, or is this?
No, I'm just more background
Okay.
information. I mean, this isn't a hearing, it's just a.
Yeah,
This isn't.
no, I understand.
Because if we're saying we agree, there's really no impact under the Wetlands Protection Act, under the city ordinance, negative determination of applicability, then they go and do their thing. If we say no.
Can we take off the map? Thanks.
If they say no, if we say no, that it is within our jurisdiction, then they have to file a notice of intent.
Okay.
So, anything else you want to add?
I don't believe so.
Just one, it is called Petrox, right? That's the name of?
Petrox, and then Munox is its other brand
Munox.
name, but it's the
Okay.
same product.
And it's made in the US, right? I was kind of looking at, it's a US product or where
I,
is it
I
made?
believe so. We are in contact with the manufacturer, so I can get you more information.
Oh, so they are different manufacturers.
No, same manufacturer, but we're in contact with the manufacturer.
Okay.
And, have been for a long time. So I can get more information on its origin.
Considering the amount of things that happen in that area that have petroleum products in it, from the gas stations, the automotive places, the service areas, I think that this microbial interjection into the system would be a good thing. And I just fear that your MCP monitoring wells are going to continue to have these microorganisms in them because of what is surrounded in that area. How do you plan to mitigate, or once you feel as though that the petroleum has been removed from the marshlands because of what's in the area, how do you plan on controlling I know you really can't control microbial colonies, but that's one thing that I think it would enhance the area where it is going to be put.
Well, I guess, as I said, we will be monitoring prior and after application. The plan for this proposal is a limited volume of the solution in a limited area. And, we don't anticipate to have, large scale effects from this. It's a very small amount being injected in a area where there are other petroleum impacts that are overlapping the ones related to the spill that we're specifically trying to address. It does kind of complicate the issue. But the product is not, the microbe colonies, my understanding of how it works is that it is a temporary effect. It is expected to peak about 90 days, and then the microbial activity will fall off. It's not something that'll be a sustained growing colony of microbes, in part because it's going to be limited by oxygen. If you can't the microbial activity is not going to be unlimited simply because of the, chemical fact, the geochemistry of the area. I don't know, Phil, do you have any other comments?
Guys, have any more questions? Are you comfortable?
I think that this is definitely something that we could probably give a negative determination, in my opinion.
So a vote for negative determination would say it's not in our jurisdiction and they can proceed as they've described. A vote against a negative determination would mean that person feels like they need to file an NOI. So we need a motion to approve the work scope as described in the RDA.
A motion to approve the work scope in the RDA for a negative determination.
So that's the motion. Is there a second?
I second that. Yes.
All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Got 3 ayes,
Nay.
1 nay. You got 4 ayes and 1 nay. So we'll send out that determination later on this week or Monday at the latest.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. Is Claire here? Can you wait a little bit? I kind of want to do the enforcement in this RDA, next one up, and then you'll have all the time you need on yours. Otherwise, if you do it now, I'm going to hurry you. All right, so I want to move to enforcement. We've had a lot of enforcement. 144 Ocean Avenue. They actually removed dirt, grass, piled it on the land next to them, adjacent to a wetlands, paved it, and then on the state-owned road, put asphalt down so they could drive over the curb. So that's going to come up. We had complaints from someone on Putnam where we had adding fill and spreading fill at 23 Putnam Road and 29 Putnam. Are those homeowners here? So I went out today. Lorena had actually responded, and I went out. I wasn't able to look at 23 Putnam but I did see 29 Putnam. So there's a big pile of soil, and this house is adjacent to the marsh. The property is adjacent to the marsh. They're in land subject to coastal storm florage. They're on a barrier beach, coastal dune, buffer zone, all of this. And in the pile I saw on 29 Putnam, there was rocks and other debris in it. So in general, and I don't know which one of you, you're at 29?
23.
You're at 29? You can't add fill in those areas without getting a permit. And one of you had a run-in with the Conservation Commission in prior years, so should know that. It's not that you can't do some things on your property, but you have to get a permit and go through the process. The DEP and the Conservation Commission will not allow construction rubble or dirty fill to be used at any rate. And so, don't know where this fill came from, but you're probably gonna have to, excuse me, remove it. I don't know if there's anything you wanna add. Just state your name and address.
Oh, my name is Rafael Urquiza, and well, I just moved there 5 days after the incident. I didn't know that I had to ask for permit just to put the soil there. I was thinking more on the safety side for my kids. But, you know, you guys know better than me. And when I purchased the property, is nowhere. He says something about that area. I had the picture here for my plan. I had 2 lots. One is not buildable. I understand that part. And so I can't do anything on that area. I don't see the point why should I be on that lot.
That issue is between you and whatever you want to do to sell it. But because of its proximity to the marsh, Conservation Commission would be concerned about the transport of that soil and whatever's in it from stormwater or rain going into the marsh. We don't want that there.
How many feet do it has to be?
I don't know, what's the buffer zone? 100 feet from the delineation of the
So you
marsh.
said 100 feet, so basically, we touching the second lot, which is not,
Right, and then because you're located in land subject to coastal storm flowage, the floodplain, and you're on a barrier beach. Yeah, I know.
so is you talking about 50 or 100 feet? There's no reason why I should be buying a property with some land that I can't even use it. But that could be a different
So
issue.
that's a different,
I mean, that could be a different issue,
it's a
but
different issue. Your issue is, if you want to do something back there, you have to go through a permitting process with the Conservation Commission.
no, I don't want to do anything,
Then you need to remove the soil
okay?
that you spread.
So do I need a permit to remove the
And my
soil?
recommendation to the commission is that we issue a notice of potential violation, not an enforcement order, but a potential violation to give you time to get that out of there.
Okay.
I would
How much
agree
time
with
do I
that.
have?
How much time do you need?
I mean, and what else can I use to replace the hole is there? Because it's a big hole.
So I believe you'd remove what was there currently safely, and then you have the ability of getting fill that isn't,
Different soil?
Yeah, and, or something that's maybe permeable, maybe there's other options.
but-
But you would then have the ability where if we're not fining you or anything at that point, if you're working with us, we'll make it so that we can figure out something that'll work, but you have to go through the process.
You have to get a permit.
I
We
don't
won't- we-
mind the permit, I just like I said, I knew on that area, I never knew anything about.
Yeah, just right into the mic.
Anything about that, those issues, but, I mean, I so disappointed because I paying the land that I can't even use it.
And listen, I get it. Every property has its nuances and quirks, and yours has that next to a marsh. It sucks, but, every
So I
property
guess
has
someone
their
did
things.
a lousy job and when I purchased the property.
I get it, but
I
that's
mean-
that's not on us at this point. That's,
know.
we're trying to help you to make it right. So we're, yet again, not finding you. We're trying to work with you to get it done correctly. So this is why you're in the enforcement aspect of it, where we're telling you what needs to be done, and then once you do it, you're done. And then you don't have to have time spending us. We love spending time with you, but, this will be a little easier on you. We're trying to make this right.
We'll work with you,
All right.
but you have to go through the permitting process. One of the things we would require is clean fill. We'd want to know how much, where you're putting it, changes in elevation, and as you're putting it down, how are you going to stabilize that so we don't have any soil get transported into the swamp, into the marsh? So you would have all those requirements. That's part of the permitting process. Right now, all this got dumped. We have no idea where it came from. Does it have heavy metals in it? Does it have hydrocarbons in it? Construction debris and rubble? It's not just us, it's DEP would be involved in this. So I think my recommendation would be is wait until you get a notice of potential violation from us. Did we already issue one? So we'll reword that. We'll give you some time to get it removed. We'll put in language that we're willing to work with you, and you can come and set up an appointment, and we'll kind of help you go through that process.
Okay.
So,
I mean, so many things that I has to do on that property, but now at this point, I don't know if I'm allowed to. Like I have an inspector to go to see a huge tree, which is right next to the gas meter. It's something that I need to be done, but I don't know, you know, I has to get a permit for that too, or I have to go through you guys.
so technically, you should ask us if the tree is a safety issue. We would never hold up a safety concern. The best way to confirm that is to have an arborist come out and look at the tree and condemn it. So if it's in danger of falling in your house and injuring someone, person, whatever, you know, we would tell you, in the interest of safety, go out and do that. We would also ask you, can you plant another tree somewhere else to replace it? But yeah, because you're in the coastal dune, the barrier beach, you should ask. And we would tell you, if the arborist says it needs to go and it's a safety issue, take it out.
Okay.
So,
All right.
so my recommendation is we reword the notice of potential violation 6 weeks. Is that enough time?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve that.
Okay,
Second.
all right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So Lorraine, if you reword that. And then it's the same story for your house.
The only question I have is,
Come and, you state your name and address.
my name is Francisco Arriaza, 29 Puna Road. My question is, if you want to do that, a driveway, how long you can extend the driveway too close to the house? So you got to, you know, I know they got to go through you because something to do to the soil, right? So my question is, how far can be the driveway or extend the driveway?
Well, I have to see,
Because that, you mentioned that they say it happened twice. But the thing is, the first time it was because he wanted to do the existing driveway. That's the thing, when the neighbors called or something like that. So that's the thing. My question is, the extension is the driveway is already there. So he wanted to just do the, you know, the power or something like that.
so you have to be careful. The city might not require a permit, but we will require a permit if you want to extend your driveway. And we would have to see a drawing
Yeah, because we have
and a sketch, and we would probably want that driveway to be permeable. So it would be stone, crushed stone, pavers, but not asphalt.
The thing, we have two, right? One on the side, and the other one is close to the house. That's the one you want to extend a little bit?
Yep.
So the pile of soil was to level the one
Yeah.
at the house, so that's the thing. Another thing is, when I look in the information for the action, the Wetland Act, Protection Act, it doesn't say what kind of soil, what kind of things you can do, and you want property, right? It only say,
So if you look at the Wetlands Protection Act and some of the guidance,
But the
you
thing
can
is-
never use,
in the area, that's a booster zone, or just, what kind of zone is that in that particular area where my house is?
repeat the question?
So in the area where my house is, what kind of zone is in the wetland? So is that the boosters? You mentioned that the booster zone? Or?
I think probably the best thing for you would be to file with us that what you're planning on doing, and then we're able to work with you and say, hey, you can do X, Y, and Z, you can't do this. And that way you can ask specific questions. So if I were you, I would file for what you're planning on doing, and then we're able to tell you at that point, because it'll be spelled out, be written out exactly what you can and can't do, and that way it'll make things a lot easier for
Yeah,
everybody.
because that's Rafael said, sometimes we don't know because we got the house like 5 or 6 years ago. We don't know that you gotta come here and do the things on your own property,
Yeah, no, I know.
That's the thing.
To file what you want to do, and at that point, we're able to have that conversation with you and say, you can do this, you can't do this, in order to do this, you have to do that.
We'll work with you if you
Yeah.
need to extend a driveway and what you need to do to level it and fill it and what you
Yeah.
can put on it. But you got to go through a permitting process. And so we're going to send you the same updated notice of potential violation. But what you've got back there, that fill, it had a lot of rocks and other things in it. That's going to have to go.
All right, that's
Okay. All right. So thank you guys for coming. You need there you go. No, I don't need it. 14 Goldie Street, they put pavers in for their driveway, and then they erected a short planter wall in the front. I drove by there today. They should have gotten a permit. I don't know why it got turned into DEP, and then DEP came to us. We would have permitted this. They probably could have done it because there's no impact to the surrounding area. So I think in this case, have you contacted them, Lorena? So I think in this case, it's going to be an after-the-fact NOI.
They mentioned that they are away, so they couldn't make it to this meeting. They'll be attending the next meeting in
Yeah.
August.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it. It's low. It's beautiful. I don't know if they got bad information where they were told they didn't need to get a permit, but so that's that one. And then let's go to this request for determination of applicability. Courtney Hilliard, 127 Oak Island. This is. Good morning. State your name and or evening.
Courtney Hilliard at 127 Oak Island, as requested.
Yeah. So this is one we were notified of, where, again, an existing asphalt driveway has been replaced with pavers, so an increase in permeable area, no increase in elevation, and existing brick planters and existing brick steps to the front of the house have all been replaced. And the height really hasn't changed. The project was pretty much done when we were told about it. So when I visited Courtney, she said they were given information they didn't need a permit. I think if they had come to us with a request for determination of applicability and they're just replacing what was there and there's no change in elevation or footprint, we would have said go forward. So she's requesting a negative determination of applicability.
That's a pretty good summary of it, honestly. I thought my contractor got everything in a row. He did talk to the city a whole bunch. Apparently, he didn't realize there was like a state environmental situation in our area. I'm glad we get the chance to sort it out before it gets bad.
Since it's pretty straightforward and you've been here for an hour and 45 minutes, learning a lot about MWRA, I would ask the rest of the board if they have any concerns on this, and if not, to make a motion. I'll make a motion to
Approve a negative determination.
approve a negative determination of applicability.
Second.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you so much.
All right. We'll send that to you. All right. Next up is a certificate of compliance for DEP file number 061.
Sorry, Chairman Shu, could you, I think you forgot about Claire with the
Oh, Claire.
LEC presentation.
Claire. Here we go. So this is for a pre-application inquiry of us in a public setting for a property on 57 Oak Island where someone's looking at buying it or has bought it, and what can they do to help improve that property with some of the water situation that they have. Did you want me to throw it up?
Oh, do you have it? If
Did
it's
you-
easy, I also brought some printouts. We provided a letter just summarizing the existing conditions at 57 Oak Island Street. And LEC put together 2 sketches, one of the existing conditions and isolated freshwater wetland boundary that we delineated in the field, and a second graphic just shows a very approximate sketch of what the project looks like. So I don't know if you want to print out just to look at while we talk this through. Okay.
All right, let me see if I can pull this up.
So just a really brief summary. I know it's already been a long evening of the existing conditions. So there's an existing 3-story multifamily dwelling just off of Oak Island Street here. We delineated the boundary of an isolated freshwater wetland that runs along the rear of the home and then continues sort of to the northwest of the home up to a vacant lot that's owned by the city.
That's that green line, dash line?
So the solid green line
The
is what
solid.
we flagged, so that's with wetland flags A1 through A9. If the commission members, were able to walk by it, I think we submitted this a week ago today, so I know it was very short notice, but we placed some orange pin flags in the ground. But the dashed line is just an approximate wetland boundary based on our observations, just to depict that this is in fact isolated. So I walked around Oak Island Park to the rear of the property, and you could see where the soccer field is at the sort of east edge of where that dash line closes out. I could see from the soccer field there that there is sort of an elevated mound that disconnects the depression on our property from wetlands that are further east. So we did confirm that it's isolated, and Lorena was kind enough to dig up a few other filings that are nearby that were done over the years. So I confirmed that there are no culvert connections, there's no other protectable resource areas that connect to this isolated depression. So we're generally confident that it's an isolated feature that's protected under the ordinance. The physical features of it and the overall size did not indicate to us on initial review that it qualified as isolated land subject to flooding. I think it measures about 8,700 square feet, give or take, just based on these approximate measurements. But we understand that when we come before the commission with a notice of intent, we'll have an engineer on board and have a surveyor come out to the site to survey locate those wetland flags, survey locate the topography within that depression, and we'll certainly confirm that it doesn't hold the volumetric criteria to meet that ILSF under the state regulations. But thank you, that's perfect transition. The project we're asking the commission to consider and talk through with us is construction of 3 parking spaces. That's sort of the whitish dashed line there. The property buyer spoke with the city, and 1 parking space needs to be 18 feet long by 9 feet wide. So to get 3 of those spaces, we're proposing 18 feet long by 27 feet wide. Just again, this is all very approximate measurements that we're working with, but we estimated about 70 square feet of impacts to the isolated freshwater wetland to accommodate that. Additionally, as you can see, the wetland line around wetland flags A3 through A5 essentially hug the foundation of the rear of the home. It makes egress from the house very difficult, where essentially between flags A2 and A3 and A4, there's an elevated concrete pad that somebody can exit the home through a door in the southern side of the house and walk downstairs that literally enter the wetland. So we would like to ask the commission to consider allowing, with a future notice of intent, placing 10 feet width of fill from the edge of the foundation to allow for safe access around the house, for the future home, property owner to conduct maintenance over the years, and more importantly, for any tenants of the house to be able to have safe egress on a day-to-day basis, or, God forbid, in an emergency. So that portion of the project would result in a little over 500, maybe closer to 600 square feet of fill in that isolated wetland. And I believe the base of the siding of the house currently is about 5 feet above existing grade. So the intent would be to place about 4 feet depth of fill. I don't have in my mind or prepared for tonight what the volume of that would be, but it's something that, we're open to considering if the commission's asking for us to address in a future notice of intent, what it would look like to.
So this was all manicured yard at one time, right?
At one time, we looked through some historic photos, and it's variable over the years, but between 2019, 2021, we saw there was like a sort of U shape behind the stairs of the house. You can sort of see it in the shadow there. That appeared to be manicured lawn, or at least mowed, but now it's really just a lot of Phragmites, purple loose strife going up right to the edge of the foundation there. So it hasn't been maintained since 2021, and it's just sort of on and off before then, it seems.
So my concerns would be loss of permeable area. You're on a coastal dune, barrier beach, floodplain.
Right.
And any fill proposed, we would want to see and understand the contours before and after. Yep. To understand exactly where you're displacing water. That this whole area has an issue with water, stormwater, rainwater. I'm not too worried about the coastal tide event. It's just the normal rains create flooding. You need to sort out stormwater drains. If it's working or not. I mean, I've had anecdotal stories from people across the street doing the Beverly project, that DCR for some reason has the drain on that side of the street and it doesn't work. In fact, Anthony lives over in that neighborhood. So I think I told you there's a city ordinance. You can't divert stormwater on your neighbor's property.
Yeah, of course. Yep.
Any concerns from you guys?
I think when they come before us, it'll make a lot more sense of stuff, but I think everything you said is what the concerns will be.
Okay.
And if there's any impact to neighbors, I can't really tell. I don't know that specific plot, but is there homes very close by, or?
So, John, if you wanted to go to the first sketch that's a little more zoomed out, there is that home just sort of to the south.
Do they have any opposition?
From what I understand, I'm not entirely sure, but I believe if there was any fill placed in our site, we would absolutely be looking into avoiding any displacement or exacerbation of water issues to their site.
Because I think their concerns would probably be that with the water, but
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure going from looking like a pit to being nicer, probably going to be an improvement for any neighborhood. So I can't see them being too upset, but everything in that neighborhood is all about water. So just when you come before us, if that person, you have a letter from that person saying that they're cool with it, it's probably going to go over a lot better with this commission. Just as a heads up.
Could I ask you a question, actually, with the connection with the neighbor? You see the dashed line has a little portion of their property involved there. If there was a conversation with that neighbor and they do have water issues and there was some sort of like team up to help them alleviate water issues and sort of combine a project? Is that something the commission could be open to?
Absolutely. Anytime that you can help in that neighborhood with water and you have neighbors that are a pro for a project,
Yep.
it's unheard of anyone having a project that is pro from a neighbor. So if you can pull that off, then coming before us, it speaks volumes.
Okay.
Yeah, I just don't want to see stormwater on the street and then running down and not getting carried off in the stormwater drains and then flooding other streets, areas of that.
So just avoiding displacement
Yeah.
beyond the
Yeah.
depression that's already holding it is,
And these are your typical 2-year rainstorm types of things. We're not talking about a 100-year, 7-inch rain event over 24 hours. Everyone's wet in that case. Coastal storm, everyone's wet, but it's the rains. Well, I think this year we've had a lot, and I've gotten so many complaints in that whole neighborhood because the water table's up. Wilson?
Yeah, just like you said, my son sometimes plays there, my son plays there sometimes, and I walk after rain, and I see a lot of from flag A5 to A7, I see a lot of water collected there, a lot.
yeah, that's
Sometimes I
very,
look-
you can see it from the street, yeah.
Yeah, so when you start filling that up, I just wonder where that water will go, and I'm sure he will look for his course, and you have the park, and you also have the field there, and I started to get concerned with the neighbors on the left, so that,
Do you know where the water table is? Is it,
Not definitively at this point. I think that's where we would want to get the engineer involved, I imagine.
because I've seen other projects along River Beach, and maybe even one in this neighborhood where, when they put their parking lot in, they created storage under the parking lot.
And are you on the PDF that I sent you, or is this?
This is what you sent me.
Yeah, so if you scroll up a little bit, there's some photos that are very helpful. That's actually a view of what you were talking about that you can see right from the street there. That view right there, so you're looking at my car from the corner of the house, and that's where the parking would go. So there would be some fill material required to sort of level that out from Oak Island Street, and that's certainly something like, I think a gentleman earlier was mentioning placing some gravel with the topsoil atop or
Right.
something like that where there was,
So if it was a crushed zone parking lot, they've got systems, and when you put down, the initial course in a crushed stone, and then you put this matrix of plastic down and then fill that with crushed stone, it holds it all into place.
Right.
And you've got storage for water.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
so-
one option.
yeah, and it's something, we definitely don't want to lock anyone down to a decision tonight, but I appreciate the ideas coming out because I think it'll help us get creative
But
with
this
a
is the
good
emergency
solution.
egress from the back of the house?
Yeah. It's hard to tell in the pictures, but the wetland flags are up on the stairs.
Yeah.
That's your way in.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, when you plan to put the fill in, have you done any borings, or do you plan on doing any borings? Because once you put that fill in, if you have a layer of gravel already subterranean, probably 6 to 10 inches down, plus some sand on top, just when they actually first made the property, are you gonna take any borings just to see, once you put that fill on, where's it gonna go? That concern of it shifting somewhere else, it's not gonna have anywhere to permeate into the water table.
Okay.
So I'd be curious to know if you're gonna do borings in your plan to kind of see if it's going to actually penetrate into the water table.
Yeah, we haven't gotten that far into the conversations, but I appreciate you asking that question because it is something that if the property buyer is interested in moving forward with this project, a lot of those are items that he'll take into consideration with next steps in hiring the engineer and getting somebody out there to do these borings or do some more exploratory testing to determine those answers. So I'm going to take note on that question.
Are you taking any trees out to put the parking in?
No, if you go back down to the photo that we first looked at, yes, there. There is a silver maple tree, just sort of like center right of that photo. I don't believe that would need to be impacted to accommodate the parking based on the distance off of Oak Island Street, but
Yeah.
that's really the only mature tree that's out there,
And then-
otherwise it's Phragmites.
And then there's other vegetation that could be planted that would suck up water.
Well,
right?
yeah, that's actually something we were thinking about as a potential mitigation option, especially knowing that water issues are occurring within this property and around the neighborhood. If actually you go down to the first graphic that we had the existing conditions, some ideas we've been discussing were, of course, like managing the Phragmites on the site and just improving the vegetation. And then we were considering sort of replanting other native plants like willows, black willow or pussy willow tend to suck up water a lot. They take a lot of water, so it could potentially suck that out of the groundwater and alleviate some of the water issues there. Another option that we are considering, and actually is pretty new information, is the property buyer learned that the lot to the rear of the house, just south of us, that has the dash green line work on it, is potentially a part of the sale, which means there is a bit larger space that we could consider creating a little more storage if we have a chance to evaluate that further. That dash line is very approximate, so if we get another site visit and determine it's that size, but the elevation's a lot higher than the really deep parts that you're seeing from the street, potentially, depending on the methodology we use to remove the Phragmites, if we're gonna get an excavator in there, we could just also dig out a little more storage while we're there, so.
Create a rain garden.
Yeah. We love a rain garden.
So I do know there was another property where DEP made them come in and put or improve a pond in that area, so. Okay. Any other suggestions?
So instead of adding fill, back to the boring question.
Yeah.
If you do those borings and find out that you do have something that is preventing that water that does collect in that area, would you be willing to, instead of adding fill and raising the grade, just removing the stuff that is preventing it from infiltrating into the actual water table? I know it would involve dredging. I know it would involve some sort of digging below the surface in an area that is a little sensitive.
So you're saying like if we did a boring and found there's some restrictive layer and what we're actually dealing with here is a perched water table rather than the true water table?
Correct.
Yeah. That would be a very interesting discovery. Knowing the surrounding area, I feel like it's highly unlikely that we're dealing with a perched water table, but.
Just try to cover all the bases at this
Absolutely.
point.
No, I appreciate that because we could come back to you guys and say, oh my gosh, we found something new. So I appreciate you thinking about that. And that's something, if we found anything that's creating the issue, I think it would just be like a cost-benefit analysis that the property buyer would have to think about, and we would consider, and if it's something that really deviates from what we've been talking about tonight, to the point that we think it might make a future approval more difficult than we expect, then we would come speak with the chairman or whoever we need to, maybe even do another one of these if something changes significantly before we come before with a notice of intent.
Okay. Well, good. You got enough to go forward?
I think so. It's just from my perspective, like it sounds like there's general support as long as we have good creative ideas and come in with, no negative impacts to our neighbors, so.
I think, if the lot gets cleaned up and water can be stored and not diverted and impact any neighbors, I think it's kind of a win-win.
Okay.
Especially if you're also looking at planting other indigenous varieties of plants that suck up water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you
Okay.
all. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for waiting.
I've made other people wait before, so it's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I know. Certificate of compliance for 061-0820. What's the address on that, Lorena? She leave? So this is after the fact NOI where they installed stairs going down to their basement. They've done it, they've recorded it, they're just looking for certificate of compliance saying it's complete. And so take a motion to approve that.
Make a motion to approve the certificate of compliance.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And then McClellan Highway Development Company, DEP file number 061-0764. This is a request of an extension for their existing order of conditions to extend the expiration date for 3 years.
I'll make a motion to request the extension.
Need a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
I have no further business. Thank you guys. This is a long meeting. Motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Oh my God.
Aye. Aye.
What? All right. Thank you. Motion, we're adjourned. Who you're with?
Oh, I was with Fields and Thomas. We submitted the request for extension. We're all set.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, no worries. No, thank you for
Sorry.
for wrapping that along
I was going to
without
tell
any
you
input from
guys, you didn't need to come or show up. We were.
Oh, bummer. Oh, well. I got some work done.
Okay, great. Thank you for
right.
for your patience. Long meeting.
No worries.
All
Have a good rest of your evening, everyone.
All right. Thanks. Yeah. Where'd you go?